Hello and welcome to Connect, the weekly podcast of the California MBA featuring one-on-one interviews with movers and shakers in the mortgage industry. I'm Susan Milazzo, CEO of the California MBA, and very happy that you could join us today. Before I welcome today's guests, I'd like to thank our 2025 President's Council sponsors. And these are companies that provide a tremendous amount of financial support to the California MBA, in large part so that we can continue to be the strong advocates for the real estate finance industry before the California State Legislature and our regulators. So please join me in thanking our 2025 President's Council sponsors. And those companies are AmeriHome, Guild Mortgage, Rocket Mortgage, Wiener Brodsky Kiter, and Western Alliance Bank. Thank you all so much for your support this year. We really appreciate it. With that, I'd like to welcome today's guest. I'm welcoming Brandon Glidden, who is CEO of 2-in-1 Tech Solutions. Brandon, welcome.
Hey, how you guys doing?
I'm happy that we could put this together. I want to get started. Usually I ask people how you got into the mortgage business, but this is a little bit different. You provide services to the mortgage industry, not necessarily from the mortgage industry. But I'd love to hear how you got started with starting your business 2-in-1 Tech Solutions. So why don't you tell us how it all started?
All right, well, we'll go back super brief, but I had a server when I was 10 years old. So I've kind of always been that IT person, that IT nerd. It kind of, snowballed me into getting my degree in telecommunications and information system management. And then I kind of just jumped full force into the IT industry. I worked at a small IT company for 5 years, then a larger IT company, and I saw this kind of disparity between the two concepts and also kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, but the dishonesty and stuff that can be behind, being at running an IT company. To be honest, it's like going to the mechanic. You never know if somebody's actually telling you what it is that's the truth or whatnot. So I then kind of decided that none of that's what I wanted, and I started my own business over 10 years ago. That business was actually called One Bit Solutions, which is kind of funny. And then in 2018, I started 2-in-1 Tech Solutions. That now has grown larger than any business that I started in the past, and all of our clients are kind of merged into that one larger business. And I kind of brought this concept from my first business, which was also same IT company, same style, same exact thing that we do now, but it was connectology, and that was the ability to provide a solution for connecting people to technology and how you can mix that together to make it right for every environment, whether that's a mortgage company, whether that's a finance company or manufacturing or any number of things, a medical company. It doesn't really matter. Each, IT is involved in every aspect of every business, and it's just a matter of figuring out what works in every industry. So that's kind of a brief synopsis of how I started. And yeah, that's about it.
And everybody needs that. Some consultants, you've got to run our business for whatever industry we're in, but we need that expertise on the IT side. Where does 2-in-1 Tech Solutions come in? Where did that name come from?
So it kind of goes along the lines of that same connectology philosophy. But it was that we're taking two elements. You have people and technology and kind of merging them into one solution. So a lot of the times, in IT, there's the answers, there's figuring out problems, but a lot of it comes to personability or, talking to people one-on-one and actually being able to communicate what it is you're trying to help them fix and them communicating their problem to you so you can then fix it. A lot of the times, we might be viewed as robots or, not necessarily people, forward. So I think that being able to find what people need, create the solution, whether that's however many different layers of IT problems there could be or whatnot, that will fix it and provide that answer. So the 2-in-1 is just that kind of concept. It was also, what's funny is, starting businesses, it's also hard to figure out names and like finding short domain names that are easy for people to remember.
Right.
And, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, especially when you're starting a business.
All that things. So I know that you specialize in IT services for mortgage lenders, which I think is really interesting. So how does their business format or business, model different from other businesses?
So I know you guys asked, I kind of answered this at the conference a little bit, but it is, specializing in one specific industry. I wouldn't necessarily say that we specialize in one specific industry. I think that because of how many different clients we have in different industries, it spills over into the mortgage industry as well. That makes, in the end, you're protecting client data. So whether that's actual lender data, whether that's internal data, it doesn't really matter. So specializing in mortgage industry, finance, whatnot, it's, in my opinion, if you have a broader spectrum or view of a bunch of different industries, then you can kind of correlate that correctly to a more detailed example of each of, like, say, just the mortgage industry. If you only need to focus on cybersecurity portions or data protection, that's super highly focused on the mortgage industry. If I'm doing something for the government, then I have a whole nother set of requirements. But it kind of all is the same. If you're approaching it as if the data and information has to be protected no matter what, regardless of industry, then you're going to do your job the same every single time, and it's more repeatable that way.
That's
Um,
true.
so I think, we have a mortgage company. We have a couple different finance companies that we help. And I think we have a product that we kind of know, here's all the different features and pieces and protection products that we use, and they all work well in the mortgage industry. Now, that
Right.
doesn't that necessarily mean they don't work well in being a HIPAA compliant like an ambulance company or whatnot, because you don't want to say, hey, oh, you don't need this piece or this piece. No, you need all of it, because nobody wants to be in the news.
Gosh, I know. And it seems like it just no matter what we do, it just seems like the threats just keep coming. And you mentioned our conference, you talking about our annual Legal Issues and Regulatory Compliance Conference, which you were a speaker at last month on the topic of cybersecurity.
Yep.
What do you feel the areas that are most missed by lenders when it comes to protecting their companies from cyber attacks?
So I was actually thinking about that. Obviously you sent me some questions, and I was kind of noodling what I wanted to talk about in that sense. I think that, when it comes to the lenders and borrowers and kind of all that, I think that the biggest thing is probably going to be moving forward is just complete fraudulent borrowers. I think that is going to push into the mortgage industry to where we're going to have a bunch of AI stuff that's going to act as fake
Mm.
borrowers. I think that that's going to probably be, in my opinion, the next new exploit, which means that we're, as IT providers, going to have to push more on, it's called MDR, but basically login protection, spam filtering, and really just all the different platforms to combat what's probably going to happen. I don't want to be that doom and gloom person, but I was literally sitting here thinking about that, and I was like, this will probably be the next vector of attack, is trying to generate fake borrowers. And I literally just thought about that in the last 20 minutes. So
Oh,
um,
that is That's probably correct, though. I mean, my gosh, when you think about the advancements in AI, right? It's like
yeah,
that
I
is
mean,
something lenders do need to be thinking about. We've all heard the saying, it's not if you're going to get hacked, it's when you are hacked, what you do. What advice do you give on lenders for breach protocols?
so uh, breach protocols. Like I said, I've been doing this for over 10 years. Obviously, had clients that have either contacted us that weren't clients after the fact, that were like needing help, or in the end, it's also very hard to prevent, no matter how many security products, platforms, configurations, everything you have perfect. Um, they're still the end user. And no matter how many times the end user can still click yes 1,000 times, and you can't just sit there, and prevent every possible vector of them constantly hitting the yes button. But I would say that I can give a couple examples. Obviously reporting it immediately to your IT provider. If your IT provider is worth anything at all, they would have already known. Most of the time, any type of intrusions should put off some type of alert immediately. And if your IT provider is doing their job right, they should be alerting you immediately as well. Like we have some clients that time to live between an intruder actually getting into an environment to when they're physically locked out or removed from the environment. A lot of our platforms can do anywhere from 5 minutes to 15 minutes, or 2 minutes to 15 minutes. Now, obviously 15 minutes provides some time for somebody to do stuff, but that's better than 2 weeks. What if you didn't know for 2 weeks that your environment's been compromised? We look at all these stuff in the news, AT&T, all these other environments that they were massive multi-billion-dollar companies, and they didn't let us, the end users, know for a year later.
Gosh, I didn't know.
And who knows how long they were in there for. And I think having your platform configured in a way that 2 minutes is acceptable, 5 minutes might be acceptable. In the end, again, somebody can still click, your employee can still allow a threat actor in, by hitting yes enough times to bypass so many different things. But being, I would say timing your cybersecurity insurance to a penetration testing every year is important. I talked about that at the conference. That's an easy thing to do because then you're going through all your cybersecurity insurance. And actually, I just did one for a laboratory client, and I was impressed. The words, like the stuff that they had in that new insurance policy was like ticking the box on everything that I recommended for this client to have. And this insurance policy was like, hey, do you have all these things? And I'd never seen whatever X, Y, and Z insurance provider being that aggressive or that like,
Yeah.
hey, you need to have all these things. And I was like, oh my gosh, I hope this starts to spill into more fields because everybody needs the same thing.
Right.
Again, nobody wants to be in the news. So if in the event of a problem, obviously, you need to call your insurance provider immediately. They're going to then assign a secondary IT company to triage you guys as, the primary IT company. It's kind of just how it goes. So then there's 2 different sets of eyes on the same problem to make sure that the threat actor's been evicted. This is obviously assuming a week-long breach. I don't really know, it could be a couple hours. It really just depends on how bad it is. But, going through those processes of, calling your insurance provider, they're going to assign another IT company. Your IT company should, have called you already. And I guess the main thing is listen. Like if we're, I wouldn't use the word panicking, but if we think it's important, you should realize the gravity of the situation.
Right.
I think that's the hardest thing. Like we've had clients where we're like, hey, somebody let this threat actor in for, an hour or something because they didn't want to pay for some of our other products or something like that. And they're like, oh, it's fine. It doesn't matter. And we're like, well, but what do you mean it doesn't matter? Like
Right.
then I think the problem is that certain businesses are, they haven't had that feeling of loss yet. Like the mortgage industry, obviously, has been in the news. There's a lot of other companies that have been in the news, but some other businesses that haven't felt that hurt are just like, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
I think that's the part where, like we're doing our job. This is our everyday thing. If we're scared about it or we're like, hey, this needs to be addressed immediately, it's probably important and for a reason. Like there'd be no reason, like that's all I do all day. Like
Right.
I protect data and protect the user and make it easy for you guys to do your job.
Right. I
So I
mean,
think,
taking immediate action, you're right. I mean,
yeah,
sometimes people or employees will kind of freeze because they're like, oh my God, what did I do? But
yes.
it's already happened. The best thing to do is to take some immediate action right out there to kind of mitigate the, mitigate the damages. So
I would
great
say
advice.
Another thing for people that don't really realize this is a lot of the times, obviously, the employee is going to lie. Um, we will know. uh, it's just kind of sad that that's kind of, I would say that happens 80% of the time.
Mm,
Um, no matter what, they're going to say, "Oh, I don't remember. Oh, I didn't do this," and then eventually they'll, it makes us have to do our job. It's way harder if they can't answer. Oh yeah, I did click on that. It was like at 12:10, and that's all I
right,
need to know because I don't want to look through 2,000 logs,
right,
for a 24-hour, 10,000 logs. Who knows how many that gets generated based on what could have changed. I just need to know the intrusion point so then I can know where it forked or what they touched or what was changed.
right.
So,
And kind of track it from there.
you
No,
know,
that's
very much transparency that, I'm not there to, slap people on the wrists and yell at them. I'm just trying to figure it out so we can make sure that the environment's safe again.
yep,
So that's definitely a big thing. There needs to be no you know, nobody's necessarily in trouble right away. It
right,
just needs to be fixed. So
right. Yeah, just
hopefully that
taking
answers
action.
your question. I know it was very
Yeah,
long-winded,
I
but
think taking action to make sure that, we can mitigate those losses, I think is great advice. I appreciate that. And Brandon, thank you for 2-in-1 support through membership. I know you guys became a member at the end of 2024. We greatly appreciate that. Look forward to working with you this year. Can you share with our listeners why you chose to support our organization?
well, I mean, just like any business, you're trying to figure out where to grow, what you want to do, and uh, our mortgage client, we really enjoy doing that type of work, and I think we're good at it. So it's kind of like, I guess we're gonna go down the path of trying to specialize more into that, um, because it's interesting, and I think it's also an industry that is obviously going to keep growing. It's like I think yeah, if COVID taught us anything, it's trying to figure out where your market is, where you're going to stay functional and growing and protect yourself. And I think that the mortgage industry also needs our help. And I think that, we talked about being more lackadaisical in some businesses and stuff like that. I think that, um, we have a lot to offer you guys. And I think that some of the stuff is pretty easy for us to offer. And from you guys' perspective, it protects you, it keeps you safe. And again, nobody wants to be in the news and nobody wants to have their employees annoyed with IT. That
Right.
doesn't lead to productivity. It doesn't lead to anything, positive. So I think, for us, it's, we, like I said, really enjoy working with our mortgage company. That's one of our larger clients. And, you know, if we can help more people, then that's what I'm here for.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate the support through membership. Thank you. And thank you for being a guest on Connect.
Yeah, sweet.
And thanks to all of you for joining us today. To access any of our past episodes, you can follow us on our YouTube channel. We're also available on SoundCloud, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. That's it for this week, and we'll see you next time on Connect.
Here we go.